This is the fifth video I've tried to make on shoulders and hubs. Between trying to use a camera and a tripod, and the battery's no good in the camera, and several trips to the hardware store getting the wrong things, and finding there were parts that I needed to print, and printed parts that I didn't need. So I thought I would try to make one final attempt here at a video. Okay. This is a shoulder module for the Michael Baddeley MKIII R2D2. I am printing the cut version of this. The cut version of the Mark III droid fits on a 300 by 300 millimeter bed. Until last week, there was no shoulder file that was cut that was available in the Patreon files from Michael Baddeley. I got this from somebody on the internet who got it from somebody else on the Facebook group. And this piece has a couple issues that I just want to go over here. One issue mainly. If you see the numbering, there's 2s and 3s in these holes. The bolts that go through those holes, if they go into the 2, right, there's 4 2s and 4 3s. If they bolt into the 2s, your droid will be in 2-leg mode, standing straight upright. If they go into the number 3s, he will be in the 3-leg mode with the left and right legs angled backwards and the center leg angled forward. If you notice on this cut file that I got, again, from somebody on the Facebook group who got it from somebody else on the Facebook group, it's got 2 dovetails. Michael Baddeley's has 3. Use Michael's. I'm going to guess that it's going to go together smoother than this. Took quite a bit of filing, trying to get the pieces to fit together. Not too tight, not too loose. I'm going to guess that Michael Baddeley's might be easier to put together. But the other issue is, if you have this file and you're intent on using it, if you notice this number 2 and the number 3 right at the very top of the piece that has F for front on the right hand side there, they're raised. All the other numbers are inset. I tried to print this piece with the numbers face down, and it messed up because it's trying to print these 2 numbers first because they're raised up off the bed, and my print was failing until I loaded it into a slicer program and looked and saw that these 2 numbers, and I believe it's just this shoulder, the other shoulder doesn't have it, these 2 numbers are raised and not inset. So don't use this file. If you have to, go ahead and make sure that you have your numbers facing up when you print it, because the other side is flat, there's no numbers on it. So try to use the Michael Baddeley one, which has 3 dovetails, which is now available in the Patreon folder. A side note, you still will need to go to the Facebook group or find somebody who's on the Facebook group if you're not, to get the ankle support piece cut to fit on a 300 millimeter bed, because as of right now, October 23rd, 2020, there is no cut version of that in the Patreon files. You have to find it. There's a link in 1 or 2 posts on the Facebook group, which is where I found it, for the ankle support cut so that it fits on 300 millimeter bed, cut in 2 pieces, and then you do the same thing. You glue it together with dovetails. Just a side note. So let's ignore that for now and just consider this the shoulder piece. Doesn't matter which version you have. We're just going to talk about the shoulder piece and the hub. This one I have put together. You can see, hopefully, the numbers 3 where the bolts come through. You can see that the angle of this insert is pointing backwards. So if this was on this side of the droid, the legs would be pointing back. So the first thing we should talk about is the hub. Okay, the hub is two-piece on the Mark III. There's a thinner piece and there's a thicker piece. The thicker piece, you put 4 bolts into, and then when you put this top piece, which has this raised section, it fits into this inset section of the larger piece, and it traps those 4 nuts into the hub. Sorry. Those nuts are the ones that you use to attach the leg to the hub. If we turn the hub around to the front, these are the holes. There's 2 of them here, 2 of them here. Those go into those bolts where you will attach the legs. The hubs are attached to the shoulders with these 4 large holes that you can see have a smaller diameter further in than they do on the surface of the hub. And remembering that you've got numbers on the back, 2 and 3. My droid's going to be 3-leg. You need to look at which holes have 3s, and then you'll line up for example, 3 is this hole here. Those go face inside the droid, so that means this here is one of the holes that says 3. So you need to line the large bolt up with that, and then get all 4 of those bolts lined up, like this one that's already built, so that your 4 bolts are going through the number 3. And that means that your shoulder and hub are now bolted together in the position needed for 3-leg version, where you've got the center leg and the side legs facing backwards, or angled backwards. Now let's talk about the bolts I've used here. This I got from the Facebook group as well. I'm in the US, so it's a little harder to get metric bolts than it is standard. So somebody recommended these bolts to attach the hub to the shoulder. These bolts have a hex head on them, so you use a large hex wrench to tighten or loosen them. And they are 3/8 16x2 bolts. They use 3/8 16 nuts. Now the reason that these are recommended, and again going over here you can see this one is built and they are in there and they are flush with the surface, which is what you want. And they have bolts on this side. The bonus to using this kind of system is that you can put the Allen key in here and then use a socket to tighten the bolts. Or put a socket on that and use the Allen wrench to tighten the bolts. The thing is, you've got both pieces, both ends of that, the bolt and the nut, you can get a hold of to make it easy to tighten and loosen. What's recommended in the files, there are hub pins and hub pin caps. This is a hub pin cap, again from the Mark III files, and it fits perfectly in that hole, where on the other one I have inserted these bolts. And it's there as a strain relief. If driving your droid around and it goes over bumps and there's any stress on the hub, if you have bolts like this, if there's enough strain, it might crack the hub and you'll have to reprint the hub, which is a large piece. So the thought in making these is if you use these and then the hub pin goes through, which I'm not even sure how that quite works. It makes this hole an M4 size instead of an M8 size. And then this part will crack if there's stress and not the hub. So you just replace this part. So good idea, but what I see most everybody on the forum doing and the few instructions that somebody made, they're just using 8mm bolts in here. Okay, this is an 8mm bolt. It's too short. If you're using an M8 bolt in here, it should be 50mm long. Again, I'm using 2-inch long standard measurement bolts. If you're using metric, it should be an M8 size, 50mm long to go through this hub and into the shoulder. The problem is, if you do that and you're not using these caps, which again, you can't use with an M8 bolt because the hole in the center is M4 size. So if you're going to use bolts with these caps, you have to use M4 bolts, which are really thin. So people instead are using M8. Well, you put an M8 bolt in there, now you can't tighten it on this end. This is an 11, I think this is an 11mm, no, 12mm socket. It won't go in there. The bolt's in there. So the only way to tighten that, assume again that we're looking at the back of the other one. Say the bolt comes out and you put a nut on it. How do you tighten that nut? Well, you're going to have to put your finger on this bolt, while on the other side you use a socket wrench or whatever kind of wrench you want and try to tighten it while you're pushing this down so it doesn't spin. So that's why somebody came up with this idea, which is a really good idea, so that you don't have to worry about that. You can just use whatever, socket, wrench, pliers to hold that end, and then the socket wrench, the hex tool in there, so both sides you can have something holding it, and then the other side you can use to tighten and loosen. So that's why I went with these bolts and why I decided not to use these hub caps. Okay, so that got me to this point where I have a shoulder with the hub attached, and you can see the thicker hub piece here, the thinner hub piece here, and trapped nut, trapped nut, trapped nut, trapped nut. So I went to put a leg on. Get lined up while holding the camera here. Okay, so you get your leg lined up. And again, instructions online say use M8 bolts. Okay, this is an M8 bolt. The same that you can use to attach the hub to the shoulder. They said to attach the leg to the hub. Well, the problem with that is if you look at this leg, that is a huge hole. That is about a 10mm hole with a M8mm bolt. So if you put it in there, look at that, your leg will flop all around, all over the place. So I realized, okay, that's not good. What's the deal there? Well, there's a file similar to the hub caps, okay? But they're leg caps. The leg caps do need to be printed. Okay, the leg caps go in there, and it's the same idea. Okay, it's the same idea as the hubcaps, where it's meant to take the strain. So if driving your droid around and you hit bumps or whatever and your leg is jostling around, perhaps there's enough stress that's going to cause some kind of a crack. Instead of cracking the leg piece, because if you're printing the cut file like I am, you need to use the version 2 legs, which are the same as the version 3 legs. They're just cut into 3 pieces so they fit on a smaller print bed. Instead of cracking this leg, which when your droid is assembled, this is 3 pieces glued together and then glued to the ankle. So you'd have to reprint that entire thing or try and come up with some kind of fix of gluing the cracks or whatever. So again, Michael Baddeley designed a little nut insert there, cup insert, so it'll take the strain and hopefully it will crack, and then you can just pop it out and print another one. So with that in there, that reduces the size of that hole so that an M8 bolt fits in there nice without a lot of play. Now here's where I ran into my last trip to the hardware store, which was made today, a little while ago. This bolt, as recommended by people, by the instructions I found on the Facebook group, is M8 by 30. M8 by 30 millimeters long. I am spinning this bolt and it is not reaching the captive nut in there. I cannot tighten the leg to the hub with a 30 millimeter bolt. It is too short. So I'm not sure why that is. The legs from the Mark II and the Mark III, as I said, should be the same. So how come they say use a 30 millimeter to get from the leg into that captive nut when for me it's not working? Now this is, you know, laying down, and on a droid it would be vertical, so maybe that would jostle the nut enough to make it go on. Even then, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. So I went back to the hardware store and got 35 millimeter bolts. And now with the 35 millimeter bolt, it's grabbing onto that captive nut. And there's enough threads that I can definitely feel that it's grabbing enough threads that 35 millimeters is enough. There might be enough room to put 40 millimeters in there, but you don't want it to end up going through and hitting the shoulder, because those, you can see that although the pieces for the shoulder, the hub goes through the shoulder, the legs just go into the hub. They do not have holes on the other side. He says double checking, yeah. So they would hit this shoulder if they were too long. That's why I didn't get 40 millimeter, even though I think 40 millimeter might be the actual depth that would be just long enough to reach the bottom. If you do get 40 millimeter, you could put a washer over here. But then if your washer sticks out past this printed cup, then the washer's on the leg and you might end up cracking the leg, which is the whole point of having the cup. So just be aware that for whatever reason, for me, 35 millimeter worked for this. 30 is too short. And the instructions online all say to use 30. So, and I'm just jostling this around right now because I haven't thought to double check that you can center all of the holes, and it looks like yes you can. There's just a little tiny bit of play in those caps, so I can get all of the bolt holes centered to firmly attach the leg once the leg is complete. So I think I got through everything I was going to try and talk about. Like I said, this has taken, was it 4 trips to the hardware store? Like 4 trips to the hardware store. And I made a video each time thinking, okay, I got it. That's the last piece I need. Now I can make the video, and then I get a certain point in the video and realize, oh, hey, I need to print these because the leg won't attach. And then, oh, hey, wait, I bought 30 mil because that's what everybody says, but 30 mil in my situation is not reaching that nut. Maybe the nuts that other people have are taller, so they come up a bit more so the bolt can grab it. I don't know. I do know that this cup, there is a different version in the V2 R2D2 plans. I just found that out today. That version, I believe, is shaped the same, but instead of being flush with the leg here, it comes up and goes over the top of the leg. So instead of looking like that, with 1 reduction in size, there's 2 reductions in size. This part here gets wider so that it's on top of the leg, and then it's got this part that's inside the leg, and then there's this part that makes it all the way through the leg. So confusing, to say the least. If you can only get a 40 millimeter, and if it is too long, so when you screw it in, you can't get it tight because it bottoms out and hits the shoulder, I guess you could print the leg caps from the version 2 leg folder, since they come up higher and go on top of the leg. Or you could, like I said, you can add a washer, which also is going to end up coming over the leg. So you'd probably be better with the other leg caps. What I would like to see happen, what I think would be a better idea, is first of all, if Michael could double check the measurements, even though he's not the one that came up with the instructions I found on the Facebook group, it's somebody else, and they say M8 by 30 for these. If somebody could double check, and since the 35 millimeter long bolts do not pose a problem, they do not hit the shoulder, they're perfectly fine, and they go in and they get that nut. So even if you have a longer nut, a 35 millimeter bolt would still work for you. So I would rather it said 35 millimeter because you know it's going to work, than a 30, which now I've proven for some people 30 millimeter won't work, I guess, depending on the size of that bolt if it's not high enough. And unless I've done something wrong here with the direction of the hub, but I know I haven't. I know that I'm doing this right. So yes, what I would like to see is currently like I was talking about at the beginning of the video with the cut shoulder, there was no cut shoulder in the Mark III files. There's also no cut leg in the Mark III files. So you have to go to the Facebook group and say, hey, what do I do with the legs if I'm printing the cut version of the Mark III? And then you'll see posts where people say you use the version 2 legs. I'd rather he puts the version 2 legs into the Mark III folder and calls them cut legs. And then you can decide why he can decide why there's 2 different versions of this cup and make the proper one in the Mark III folder. If it needs to be this type for the Mark III for some reason, as opposed to the kind that comes up and over that's in the version 2. If this is a better design, just put this, make a folder for cut legs in the Mark III Patreon files so that people can just download the Mark III Patreon files if they want to print a Mark III droid, whether they're printing it on a 500 by 500 millimeter print bed where they can print things like the shoulders in one piece, or if they're printing the cut version because they have a 300 by 300 bed. But that's just a little complaint after 4 trips to the hardware store, and I don't think they take bolts back, so I've spent so much money now on different bolts for this and nuts for this project that it's ridiculous. So yeah, hopefully that's a video for the Mark III shoulders and legs. That I don't know that I've seen one. I've seen, like I said, I've seen pictures on the Facebook group. I don't think I've seen a video. And even the pictures are a little bit confusing. Especially, like I said, where I tried 30 millimeter bolts to hold the legs on and they did not work for me. So hopefully this will help someone somewhere down the line. Because if I had seen a video like this, I would have saved a little bit of money on a bunch of useless nuts and bolts.